Hi everyone, this is Linda back with the newest from Erica Michaels Designs. I have 3 new designs coming. Let's see, I'm scheduling the initial release date for July 18. That's when they will ship or begin shipping to my auto retailers. Those handful of shops that are on my automatic list, they get everything first, and then other shops follow after that. So, like I said, 3 new titles, and obviously one of these is the 3rd installment of the Quilting ABCs series. I think a lot of you are really enjoying this. I'm delighted to see that so many are taking advantage of it, maybe participating in a group or an SAL of some sort. That's terrific. I don't, as before with the second part, I don't have the overall big model to show you because it's in a trunk show right now, but I do have the models for the little outtakes for this particular installment. If you remember, for each of the parts, I am showing you also some options as to how to finish those little blocks, those little quilt blocks individually. So if you're not into doing the big overall sampler and you like to do smalls, plenty of options out there. In this case, it is row, it's the 3rd row, 3rd installment, and so that's LMNOPQ. So what I did this time is I took the little individual blocks and made little small cushions out of them. But I only made 3. There's 6 blocks in this row, but I only made 3 because I put the other one on the other side. So it's a little 2-sided cushion. And if you'll notice, I also used a slightly different fabric. So there is a kind of a gray blue for one side and then a more neutral for the other side. What a great way to use up little scraps of fabric, because these are really quite small. If you take a ruler, these are maybe 3 inches square is all on 36 count. So we have Loyal and Mary. Then we have Outstanding. I guess N comes next. Nice and Noble, 2 different qualities there. And then 5 and 6 is Patient, to be patient, and Q is be quiet and listen. So 3 sweet little smalls. That's your idea for an outtake in part 3. So that's Quilting ABCs. You can always start, you're not missing out. You can always catch up and get the first 2 patterns from your retailer and then start in and get number 3 with this release, and then 4 and 5. At this point, plans are to release those in September and then the final installment in November this year. So let's see, let me give you a little bit more information. Yes, the little blue-gray color on these, that is Melville linen from Needle and Flax. And then the neutral side is beige linen from Weeks Dye Works. Alrighty, now, as much as I love quilts, I'm not a quilter. I've tried dabbling it a little bit. It's not my thing, but I love them. And so kind of taking as a cue from this series, if you've been waiting, I have made a trio of berries, and they're based on this same ABCs series. So what I have are the quilting berries. Let me try to get them lined up here so I can hold the 3 of them sort of together, and then I'll show them to you individually. So there are 3, it's a trio of 3 berries. This one is almost full coverage. I have used the same flosses I used in the ABC series. In this case, I've used a little bit different linen, but it's still a neutral. There really are a lot of different ways you can go. In this case, I've used 38 count Cloister Cream Legacy Linen from Access Commodities. In this one, you really can't even see that very much because it's almost solid stitching, where I've just put together like a true patchwork quilt. I think this one might be one of my favorite berries. Then there's one, I took 3 more of the blocks from the Quilting ABCs, and this one says Scraps of Happiness. It's a little heart, and back here on the back is the little quilting bee, and then a pair of scissors. Scraps of Happiness. And then the third berry in this trio simply says Quilt in nice big prominent letters. Scissors, there's a threaded needle across the top, and a few more of the patchwork motifs from the Quilting ABCs. I really love these. Like I say, this full coverage one might be my favorite, but I like them all. Top treatments on these, you see, pretty much the same. Obviously, there's that great vintage ruler twill tape from Lady Dot Creates, but the base cap is just a dark blue, kind of coordinating with all of this, and it's a nice neutral. Then on each one, I've layered, you know, a square and maybe a circle or a hexagon of another color wool that is in this color palette. So everything kind of ties together in kind of a mix and match way. And there really are a lot of options in color combinations for you here. I also added a vintage button, a different vintage button on the top of each one. There you go. And finally, there is a new or a pin mini set from Just Another Button Company. That's the little sets of 3 pins, and there is a quilting bee, patchwork, and a spool of thread. These pins are all pins that were already in the line, and they've been combined into a little pin set called Quilting Bee that your shops can get directly from Just Another Button Company. So those are the quilting berries. Hope you love them as much as I do. Finally, the third release this time is called Vintage Garden Smalls, and a little backstory on it. In 2020, I was asked to provide a club design, and I put together all of this, and then a couple of things happened. Because it was 2020, we decided to use only 2 of the pieces I designed instead of 3, because it was just really difficult to get fabric and other supplies for the clubs at that point. And also, when I originally designed it, I designed it on a piece or a color of linen that was no longer available. So we had to backtrack a little bit, and this is a result now a few years later where I've added back in that third design. And so now it's a little trio of smalls. And I'll give you a quick look here of the 3 pieces. This is Vintage Garden Smalls, pretty, very vintagey looking roses and other flowers. But the inspiration for this, and if you've followed me very long, you know that I am definitely inspired by vintage and antique pieces of all kinds. This is a little tiny little clutch purse with that petit point design on it. That's what's used in here. But what's very fun is this is actually an itty bitty sewing kit. So that's all the bigger this is. And I actually was able to chart that little design, and we end up with Vintage Garden Smalls. So the piece that was not originally included with the club because of the fabric issues is the little small pinch tray. Now I made a little tray out of this. You could obviously make kind of a larger pin pillow sort of thing. These are stitched on 32 count light mocha Belfast linen. So depending on your fabric count, it would be smaller, might make a pretty pin pillow, but I like the tray. Here my work forever stands, the labor of two busy hands. And there, of course, across the center is that same little motif that's in this little sewing kit. And then a couple of other little borders. It's very sweet, very pretty, and not all that time consuming to stitch. Now to go with that, the original two pieces in the club were a berry and a needle book. And in this case, they do fit into the tray. This berry is a little bit of a different berry for me because it's more long and skinny, but there we have that same pretty, it's adapted a little bit to fit the berry shape, but there's that same design from the little tiny sewing kit. There's places for the year you stitch and your initials and a few other little rosebud elements. The top of the berry is really pretty simple. There's a base cap and leaf of the green, and then there is a layer of 3 circles of wool or pennies, and they're cut in 3 different shades of reds. You don't have to do it that way. I happen to have little scraps. That's why I say never throw your scraps of wool away, because you never know when you might need them for just a little tiny thing like this. And I just secured everything with a little mini button. And that's easy. Okay. Now I still have the other berry. Remember I said the berry, the fabric that I originally designed this on became no longer available. This one is stitched on what was called dirty linen. It was made by Swigert. Some of you may even still have a stash somewhere. I think it's a really pretty contrast with that little bit darker linen. You see the difference? They're both lovely. But if you like more of a prim, older, antique-y look, you might prefer stitching yours in a darker linen as opposed to the fresher look that the light mocha gives it. So that's the difference between the two. And the top treatments are basically the same. On this one, I did use a dark brown cap because it just fit nicely with this darker linen. Again, those wool choices are completely up to you depending on your fabric choices and what you might like. So again, this is the needle book. Don't want to forget this cute needle book. Here we have that pretty rose motif. The back side says simply needles. And the inside's a very simple needle book finish. I've got a piece of wool that I used to line it. I used pinking shears in this case because I like just that little added texture or detail. And then there's another piece of wool tacked into the center for needles. I added this extra little bit of wool, kind of repeating the wool flower from the top of the berry. But what you do with the inside of your needle book is always completely optional. You can make it very simple, or you can have fun adding some little treasured bits and pieces that you might want to include. So again, there's all 3 pieces, this time in Vintage Garden Smalls. The tray, which was the piece that was not in the club, and then the berry and the needle book. So that's all I have this time. Check with your favorite retailer. There are going to be plenty of them that are going to have access to this. Again, my automatics are going to get shipped first. There are a number of stores that are on an automatic just for the Quilting ABC series. Those will follow soon after, and then things kind of move along after that. So depending on who you're ordering from will determine maybe on how soon after the release date of July 18 that you actually can start ordering, or they can start shipping to you, or you picking up at your local shop. So I hope you enjoy everything. Hope you stay cool and safe this summer. Enjoy it. Enjoy time if you're vacationing or able to spend time with family. And when it gets super hot, stay in and stitch. Thanks everybody. Have a great one. Bye.